Hello and welcome to Shoot the Hostage with me, Dan, and my partner, Sarah. We're a movie podcast who talks about a different film each week based on a theme. We do swear and we do spoil the featured movie, so only ever listen if you've seen the film or you don't care too much about spoilers. If you're a regular listener, you can just skip forward until you hear the intro music because you've heard all of this before. But if you are new to the show and you do enjoy what you hear, there are a couple of things you can do to help support the show. Firstly, make sure that you're subscribed on your podcast player so you get notified when new shows drop on Mondays. You could rate us 5 stars on Spotify, which couldn't be easier. You just hit the star icon below the show's artwork. Or if you have a spare few minutes, we'd love it if you could submit a review wherever you listen. Make sure you come follow us at STH_pod on social media. We are active on Instagram, Threads and TikTok. And lastly, the biggest thing you can do to help is tell a friend about the show. So that's about it. That's enough preamble from me. Over to me and Sarah for this week's episode. Welcome to The Rock.
Here we go.
And welcome to our second movie in our coming of Cage season.
Oh, you're sticking with that, are you?
Yeah, I think that we should just call it that.
Okay.
We haven't done any of the artwork for the episodes yet on social media. Oh, have you?
Yeah, I started.
Call it Coming of Cage. Don't call it Nicolas Cage. Coming of Cage. I like that. You came up with it, and I think we should stick with it in a marketing material.
The marketing material.
Yeah.
I'll get on with our branding team, shall I?
Yeah, set up a meeting. We can blue sky some ideas.
All right, yeah.
I'll order some croissants.
We'll do a meeting that could have been an email.
Yeah, exactly. That's what meetings are, aren't
Yeah.
they? Unnecessary things that you do that could have been discussed in an email or even a telephone call.
A succinct email usually as well.
Page me
Yeah.
me later, and we'll get onto this with our team.
Page me in 1996.
Speaking of which, today we're talking Nicolas Cage's first film in his iconic action trilogy in the 90s.
Oh, it's known as his action trilogy, is it?
Yeah. The Rock.
What, Con Air and Face Off?
Yeah.
Okay, even I know that.
Yeah.
I guess it is iconic.
It is iconic, especially if you're an action fan, especially if you were born in the 80s and you came of age in the 90s.
And own a penis.
If you own a penis, that helps, definitely, yeah. It doesn't have to be attached to your body. You can
But it
just
helps.
Carry it around in a briefcase. That would do. As long as you have a penis somewhere on your persons, I think you'll know that information.
Yeah.
For us, this is a film of seconds. Now, while we were watching the film, we'll get into the specifics of it.
Mm-hmm.
But Claire Forlani's in this.
Yeah.
And you said to me, this is our second Claire Forlani movie.
Well,
I think I looked up to the ceiling and started scratching my head and I couldn't think of what it was.
have you figured it out?
No.
Okay, so it's technically speaking our second Tony Todd movie. I am counting Candyman.
Mm.
It's our second Bokeem Woodbine movie.
Mm-hmm.
The first being
Freeway, which was released in...
Was it 1996?
Yeah.
Why do I think that's 1994?
I don't know.
Because I'm incorrect, I guess.
It was 1996.
And it's our second Claire Forlani movie.
Yeah. So what is it? What's the other one?
What is usually the answer?
Meet Joe Black.
No. We've never covered Meet Joe Black. Nobody remembers that movie. Brad Pitt doesn't remember being in that movie.
Okay.
When you ask me questions and you say what's likely to be the answer, what is it always?
I know what it is. Oh, Lord.
It took you long enough.
Of course, Claire Forlani, she began her career, didn't she? Or it was early on in her career when she received the great news that she was going to be part of the Police Academy franchise.
Yeah.
For Police Academy 7 Mission to Moscow,
which
is praised by many as being the strongest entry in a Police Academy franchise.
Said no one ever.
It's got Ron Perlman in it. Captain Harris in a tutu.
Oh, well. Yeah. Classic.
No Proctor, though.
Classic material.
No Proctor, and that's the only problem with that movie.
I'm sure.
Of course it's Police Academy 7. Oh, I was racking my brains. And I know if I'd have gone through every movie on our spreadsheet, I would have got it eventually, but I didn't. I wanted to save this fun conversation that we're having.
Yeah, I'm amazed it took you this long.
Yeah, I was racking. I was like, what else has she been in? Mystery Men, haven't done that. Meet Joe Black, never seen it.
Was she in Mallrats?
Yes,
Yeah.
I believe she was. Yeah,
okay.
We've never done Mallrats, which we'll probably get to it at some point, given that it's Kevin Smith.
We'll get to everything eventually. There'll be like season 396 when it's just you talking to me, except I'm a brain in a jar being voiced by AI.
You'll be a brain in a jar being voiced by AI.
And you'll be a doddery old man.
No, I'll be a digital version of myself.
Like Black Mirror style.
I'll still be alive, but I plan to upload my consciousness as it is to the cloud, and then you'll be able to podcast with my digital version and I can just play Gran Turismo.
Oh, what?
That's my plan. I'm training it at the moment.
I don't like this. So I still have to work?
Yeah.
What?
Well, I'm doing the legwork now, so I don't have to work later. Think of it as a pension, but like a digital consciousness pension.
A digital pension?
Yeah.
That sounds insane. So, The Rock.
It's also our second Michael Bay movie.
Yeah, sadly. This is going to be a recurring theme.
Sadly.
I'm going to be salty as heck this episode. You just know it.
It's our third movie produced by Jerry Bruckheimer.
Mm-hmm.
The first one being
Bad Boys. Yeah.
The other one being...
give me a clue.
I don't think I realised this till recently, but it's Thief.
Oh, what? What?
Early in his career.
What went wrong?
With Jerry Bruckheimer.
He went from producing Michael Mann to Michael Bay.
Listen, I think that you and I are going to get into the weeds on this one.
We're going to clash massively. We're going to butt heads.
I think this is going to be, some couples, they go to like couples therapy. I think this might be our version of that.
Okay.
Where we just hash it out and we reconcile our differences.
And y'all got to listen to it.
And we'll get to the end and we'll either be rejuvenated and accepting of each other.
Or consciously uncoupling.
Yeah. I hate that phrase. You broke up then? Yeah. All right, fuck off, Chris Martin. Yeah, that blew my mind that Bruckheimer was a producer on Thief, but it does make sense to me when I think about the trajectory of his movies and the fact that I see quite a lot of Michael Mann in Michael Bay. I see quite a lot of Tony Scott in Michael Bay.
Tony Scott, yes. Michael Mann, less so?
I hear what you're saying. I think visually, and it's probably more to do with cinematography, but I know that Jerry Bruckheimer is a very visual producer. I think he went to uni and like studied photography or something. So I think that a lot of that DNA is carried through to the movies. Now we can discuss Michael Bay, which we will, I'm sure.
Oh yeah.
But I think that Bruckheimer is probably one of those producers that's mostly responsible. Like you look at his movies in the 80s and the 90s, you would be forgiven for thinking they were all directed by the same person. You've got Top Gun, which was directed by Tony Scott.
Mm-hmm.
Bad Boys, Michael Bay. The Rock, Michael Bay. Crimson Tide, I think that was Tony Scott again. And then you get into things like Pirates of the Caribbean, which has some Bayisms and some Bruckheimerisms because he was a producer on that.
And some Zimmerisms.
Yeah, for sure. But like those, they all share a DNA and you can see the through line from them.
I guess so. I'm just, look, hands up, you know this about me. Michael Bay's not my guy. His films just aren't for me. So I feel like that's an important disclaimer to this show.
I would like to offer my opinion of Michael Bay.
Okay.
That is
as a human or a director?
As a director.
Okay.
I don't know much about him as a human.
Scumbag.
Maybe we'll talk about that. But there are two films of his that I love.
Mm-hmm.
There's one film that I really like, but I don't think it's very good. And I think the rest of them are garbage.
Okay.
Well, I love Bad Boys.
Yeah.
Spoilers, I fucking love The Rock.
Yeah.
And I really like Armageddon.
Oh, fuck off.
But it's not a good movie.
It's
garbage. There's certain parts of it that I think are made well, and it's like got a huge budget and it's on screen, but it's pretty terrible in places and pretty cheesy, but I enjoy it. And then you go into Transformers and all of that nonsense. So after the 90s, I guess what I'm trying to say is that I sort of don't think Bay was ever better than he was when he directed The Rock. I think this is peak Bay.
Which is curious, because wasn't this his second film?
Yeah.
Because obviously we talked about it a little bit in the Bad Boys show that we did, but I know he started off doing music videos and stuff, which explains his visual flair, if you want to call it that. But yeah, was it Bad Boys first and then this?
Yeah,
Bad
Boys was his first movie. And then he went straight into this. Bad Boys, I think, was a budget of 19-20 million, I think.
Yeah.
And then this was 75. So immediately got 3 times budget, 3x budget, really like very quickly. But I think he also did commercials, I think, before Bad Boys. And he did, I don't know if you're familiar with it, but a Got Milk commercial where Sean Whalen I think it's advertising milk. Don't forget
Sean
to drink
Whalen?
Milk. Yeah, Sean Whalen.
Did a Got Milk ad?
Yeah,
I'm
apparently.
familiar with the series of adverts. Like, shitloads of celebs were in them.
Were they?
Yeah. Sean Whalen's not somebody I would call a celebrity, though.
Well, I wasn't familiar until today as doing part of my research. And 1993, this advert, I watched the advert. Yeah, it looks like it was shot by Michael Bay.
It's just the whole milk mustache thing, isn't it? Or am I... Maybe that was just the print ads that they did.
He didn't have a milk moustache.
Right, okay.
Let's come back to Michael Bay in a bit. Before we get to that, this is part of our Coming of Age season, as we said up top. And I've kind of committed to trying to figure out 3 facts in each episode about Nicolas Cage. So, did you know that he actually pulled a tooth out?
For what purpose? I mean, no, I didn't.
So he pulled a tooth out without using any anaesthetic for his role in Birdie, which came out in 1984. It's a war film.
Okay.
Not familiar. I haven't seen it. He claims that it wasn't totally insane because it was a baby tooth. And logic suggests that if it needs to come out anyway, he said that he may as well use it to enhance his performance.
Oh, he did it on screen, or he did it for the movie?
You know, he did it for the movie. He didn't...
Not in the movie?
No.
Right, okay.
I would definitely have seen it.
I would not put anything past this man at this point.
True, that's very true, yeah. But I respect that. I think, it's going to come out anyway. Why not use it?
I guess so, but then do we respect Shia LaBeouf for doing the same thing? Was it Fury?
No, we don't respect Shia LaBeouf.
For any reason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't need to. I don't need to.
We don't need to expand on that. Exactly. Okay.
Fact number 2 for Nicolas Cage. He once publicly denied being a vampire. Which this fact might have made more sense in our previous episode.
Yes, in hindsight.
But I didn't want to spoil that movie. So, do you remember that photo of Nicolas Cage that was, it wasn't of Nicolas Cage, or maybe it was, depends on which conspiracy theory you buy.
Oh, yeah.
But
he was a time traveller or something.
Well, I think that was some of the...
I heard that one.
There was a picture of a man from 1870, and it looked like Nicolas Cage. You look at it, yeah, it does look like Nicolas Cage. It was originally posted on eBay, apparently, with the heading, Nicolas Cage is a vampire. And I don't know if you'd pay this, but the asking price was £1 million for this photo.
No, I don't have £1 million.
If you had £1 million,
no,
exactly, because you're not a moron.
No, and it's clearly fake.
I don't think
I'm not going to pay any money for a photo of a random man that isn't Nicolas Cage.
But the description said it's Nicolas Cage.
Oh well, you can't lie on eBay.
Do you want to? I've written down the description that was on eBay as well. Right, you ready for this?
Oh, I don't know.
Personally, I believe it's him. Okay, then.
I'm convinced.
Take my £1 million. Personally, I believe it's him and that he is some sort of walking undead / vampire, etc.
Etc. I mean, well, yeah, you don't want to pigeonhole yourself. You don't want to claim that he's definitely a vampire.
No.
You've got to leave a little bit of ambiguity.
If you say undead and vampire, you'd be like, oh, is it zombie? Is he a ghost?
Just some sort of reanimated corpse.
Yeah. Or is he etc.? Is he something that we don't know about?
Could be etc., yeah.
They've covered all bases with that description. And that's why it's smart.
Did they sell it, is my question.
No.
Oh.
So personally, I believe it's him and that he is some sort of walking undead / vampire, etc., who quickens... Someone's been watching Highlander.
Okay.
/ reinvents himself once every 75 years or so. like a lot of reading into this. Like
They've created an entire law.
exactly, and I love that. And it also said 150 years from now, he might be a politician, the leader of a cult, or a talk show host.
I'm going to say leader of a cult. He should be a leader of a cult now. I'd join it. Well, it depends what the initiation is, actually.
The initiation is to watch The Rock every day for a year.
Oh, no, I'm out.
Okay. So Cage later went on Letterman and said it was fake. And I quote, "You can't take pictures of vampires."
Oh, my God. Oh, my God. Is he a comedy genius?
Yeah, he's definitely a genius.
Of all the things he could have said, I love that. He's not wrong, though.
No.
And as a vampire, he would know that.
Yeah, of course.
Mm.
It's a double bluff.
It is, yeah.
I got one last fact for you.
Okay.
And again, you might be familiar with this. It's the dinosaur skull one. You know about this?
What?
So it doesn't ring any bells with you?
A dinosaur skull?
Yeah, dino skull.
I don't think so.
Okay. So in 2007, Nicolas Cage attended an auction where he and Leonardo DiCaprio were bidding on a dinosaur skull belonging to the species Tarbosaurus bata. Cage won the bidding with a $276,000 bid, but my guess is that DiCaprio found out the skull was 70 million years old and decided it was too old for him.
Oof.
And that's why Cage won the bidding war. 7 years later, he was contacted by US authorities and was informed that it was illegally taken from Mongolia.
No shit.
Yeah. So
that would have been my first assumption. Is this sale legal?
has this dinosaur skull been stolen from Mongolia?
Well, maybe not specifically that.
But when he found out, he voluntarily returned the skull to the Mongolian government. And also, I think he was given some false papers of like authenticity and stuff. So he bought it. There were papers to say that it was genuine, that were faked, but he never got his money back and no one was ever prosecuted.
Is this why he had financial troubles?
I mean, I would say that spending $300,000 on a dinosaur head is indicative of the kind of financial troubles that you're going to have. If you're spending that much money on a dinosaur skull, you're going to lose your house at some point, right? I think the main reason, to be fair to Cage, I think was he'd bought a bunch of property and then the 2008 crash happened and he just lost loads of his money. But he wasn't being careful with it at the same time. So
no shit.
Yeah, he did have some serious money problems.
But some cool as heck taxidermy.
Well, yeah. Not that one because he had to give it back to the Mongolian government. But he's still got that two-headed snake from last week, so that's all right.
Oh, well. Would you leave me if I brought a dinosaur skull into the house?
Are you spending $300,000 on it?
No, because I don't have it.
Is it going in your room?
Yes.
Well, it don't matter then. Yeah, do what you like in your room. So The Rock, the budget was $75 million.
Mm-hmm.
The box office was $335 million.
I was going to ask you how well it did, because I know the critical reception to it was pretty mixed.
Decent.
Oh, mixed.
Decent.
Mixed.
Ebert liked it.
Ebert's a fucking hack who hates horror movies, which I will be coming back to.
Okay.
Because I have gripes.
Okay. But it was it did pretty well. It was the fourth highest grossing movie in 1996.
Okay, behind what?
The first being Independence Day.
Of course,
because
yeah.
of course that was everywhere. Number 2 was Twister.
Oh, okay.
Number 3 was a Brian De Palma movie, Mission Impossible. And this was number 4 at $335 million.
Okay.
I remember this being at the cinema and seeing the trailer. I didn't go because I was 12, I guess, and it would have been a 15.
Right.
I probably could have got in if I really wanted to.
Just put a fake moustache on.
I could have done that. Yeah, I should have done that. But I remember the trailer, it had the score from...
Pirates of the Caribbean?
No, that came much later. It had the score from Bad Boys on the trailer, and it was a Jerry Bruckheimer production, and it was one of the first times that I was really paying attention to the score and the look of a film. So I was excited that it was a Bruckheimer production, and I was excited that it was used in the Bad Boys score.
Mm-hmm.
When I watched the movie, it didn't use that Mark Mancina Bad Boys score.
No.
But it did use Hans Zimmer's score for The Rock, which ended up being even better, I thought.
almost identical to
Yeah.
places.
Yeah, a lot of them sound the same, to be fair. This came out on VHS maybe, I think it was released in the cinema in June 96, so VHS here, it would have been the following year at some point. I definitely rented it in the summer, and I think I rented it twice. It was definitely one of those, I watched it, I did an Empire Records where I rewound it, watched it again.
Yeah, I didn't think you meant you damned the man and saved the Empire.
Yeah. I celebrated Rex Manning Day.
In the summer, heathen.
Oh, it's April, isn't it? Is it April the 4th?
9th, I believe.
Okay. Yeah, so I rented it, loved it, watched it twice, rented it again, loved it again, bought it on VHS.
Of course you did.
Wore the fucking tape out.
Did you really?
Yeah. I was probably watching this daily for some period of time. And I definitely was waking up in the morning early, can't get back to sleep. Oh, let's watch The Rock before I go to school.
Before you go to school?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my God, you've got issues.
I definitely wore the tape out, and it was worse during the car chase scene, which we'll come back to. But yeah, I watched that. I've seen that scene 100 times.
That's
easily.
Nuts.
I've watched the film probably a good 40 times, I would say, over my lifetime, which is, yeah, it's a lot to watch this movie.
And you're like, oh no, I couldn't possibly dedicate 8 hours to this TV show. That's so long. But you've dedicated over, what, like 88 hours, 90 hours to just this one film?
I've probably, including my research for this podcast, I've probably spent about 100 hours of my life leading up to this very show.
Fuck me.
No pressure. Yeah.
Oh my God.
The difference is that I don't want to spend 8 hours watching a show that I'm like, this is all right. Like, this is passing the time. Bit closer to death now.
Wow.
But with The Rock, I'm really enjoying it. Like, even now I put it on and I can't take my eyes off it. So that's the difference for me.
I can take my eyes off it.
Yeah, and you did. You took your eyes off it and you asked me a bunch of questions while we were watching it as well. A bunch of quips. It wasn't annoying at all.
I'm so sorry. I did apologise after the fact.
You apologised once halfway through the movie and then you carried on and then you apologised again.
Oh, did I?
Yeah.
I don't remember apologising halfway through the movie.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit about the production, shall we? So the script was originally written on spec by David Weisberg, and there ended up being a few writing and screen credit disputes. It went through multiple rewrites with several writers, and it led to a dispute with the Writers Guild of America over a screen credit. The original writing team, David Weisberg and Douglas Cook, later Mark Rosner, received official credits.
Were the disputes that none of them wanted their names anywhere near this piece of shit?
No, because it would be Alan Smithy, wouldn't it? Not credited, but also did work on this film was Jonathan Heinsley, Quentin Tarantino, and Aaron Sorkin.
Aaron Sorkin?
Hmm.
You notice Quentin Tarantino didn't get that response.
Yeah.
Aaron Sorkin? I mean, he only knows how to write white male protagonists, so that makes sense.
Yeah. It makes total sense.
I'm gonna get so many people's backs up in this episode, aren't I? Everyone's gonna hate me.
Casting wise, originally Arnold Schwarzenegger was initially considered for the role of Stanley Goodspeed. At that point, the character was called Bill Goodspeed. Schwarzenegger turned it down because he didn't like the script. At that point, it was just an 80-page, I guess, kind of draft, though. And
Schwarzenegger didn't like the script.
I think at that point, the central idea that Weisberg had was part of it, but it was one of those projects that really developed as the project went on and as people were brought onto the cast. So Schwarzenegger says no, I think rightly, because
he would have been terrible in that role.
I agree. I think part of the attraction of Nicolas Cage's Goodspeed is that he's a bit nerdy and a bit like as much as predictable as these action movies are. He is kind of an unconventional hero.
Yeah, because he's a fucking weirdo.
Yeah, exactly.
Who buys dinosaur skulls in his spare time.
There is also a potential connection between The Rock and the 2003 Iraq War.
Oh. In what way?
Well, this is nuts. I've only just learned this today. I had no idea, never heard of it. But apparently back then, MI6 received intelligence about weapons of mass destruction, anthrax production, and specifically a nerve agent stored in glass balls. Their source claims to have direct access to the weapons. The Iraq inquiry, the Chilcot inquiry, the thing that went on for 15 years, that concluded that the claims were false and that the source probably watched too many American action movies. So this film could have been part of the reason that war happened.
What?
Isn't that nuts?
That's another reason to dislike it. That's insane. I had no idea.
I had no idea either.
Oh my God.
I don't even know how I stumbled upon it. I think it was on maybe the Wikipedia page, and I was like, what? This can't be real. So I'm Googling Chilcot inquiry and I'm trying to look for articles. And yeah, I think it was something that the people investigating it kind of went, well, that sounds a bit like The Rock, doesn't it? So...
Oh my God.
Yeah, obviously the nerve agent that's stored in those cool kind of glass globes in the film... They look like the strings of... They look like anal beads.
They look like massive anal beads.
Elegant string of pearls configuration. Yeah, complete nonsense, complete fabrication. But that's the intelligence that MI6 were given. And there's a whole... Well, I'm not going to go into that war, obviously, but it's nuts that could have led to that in some way, whether that's small or large or... I don't know. It's something
That's crazy.
It's worth mentioning, I thought. The movie did actually shoot on Alcatraz Island, which was managed by National Park Service. It did present difficulties as the site couldn't be closed. Filming had to be coordinated around tour groups.
Oh, right. So was it an actual tour group that was taken hostage?
It was an actual tour group, yeah. Because Ed Harris is a method guy.
Right,
so
yeah.
He wanted these tourists to be there, and he got there he shot his gun up in the air, and he said, I'm very sorry, I'm not going to keep you detained for any longer than is absolutely necessary to complete our mission. But yeah, it's interesting that it was shot on Alcatraz. There were some scenes shot at the Fairmont Hotel in San Francisco as well. You know, the bit where Womack, why am I not surprised?
Stop it.
Piece of shit. It's where he gets thrown off the roof, and apparently obviously that hotel was still open as well.
The thing that I'm watching right now on your TV that's muted in the corner.
Womack. Is it Womack?
It's the hotel bit.
Yeah, exactly.
With the not at all homophobic portrayal of the hairdresser.
Yeah. Yeah.
The less said about that, the better, eh? I mean, yeah, it makes sense that the stuff on Alcatraz was filmed on site, because for a 75 million budget to replicate that, to sort of purpose build sets, would have been astronomical, surely.
There was some model work done, but yeah, it was shot there, which would present its own challenges. I think it was a very windy set.
Right.
I think just getting stuff there, you know, like we had that conversation when we were talking about Waterworld
yeah.
with Joel.
Yeah.
Just getting stuff to and from set, getting to the catering boat, you know, everything would have been set up on this island. So that's not going to be as tricky as the Waterworld shoot. But still, you've got to get everything there, logistically speaking. Apparently, it was the biggest cabling job since Terminator 2. I think I heard Michael Bay say. So yeah, it did present its own difficulties, but an interesting location.
Yeah, I don't know what 75 million would be with inflation, but I'm kind of surprised it wasn't more than that then.
Yeah.
I wonder what the insurance was to film there, and like all the hidden costs that you don't even think about.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Insurance would have been... I think as soon as you get Nicolas Cage on your picture as well, insurance just goes up.
It's like you have to get extra wildcard insurance.
Yeah, wildcard insurance. Yeah, that's why they invented wildcard insurance, because of Nicolas Cage.
Is it?
Yeah. It's a term we use in the industry. We call it the cage clause of Cage. But we mentioned earlier that Arnold Schwarzenegger was offered the role. It wasn't, and obviously when he turned it down, it wasn't until Cage got cast, who got cast first, that things started to come together. They began developing the script more. Sean Connery came on board because he liked Cage and he wanted to work with him.
Okay.
He brought his own writers to punch up his dialogue as well.
Did he bring his own wig?
The grunge thing. It's a grunge thing.
It looks more like Dog the Bounty Hunter in the first few scenes he's in.
Yeah. But yeah, he brought on his own British screenwriting team, Dick Clement and Ian Lafreniere, to rewrite his lines, but they ended up changing a lot of the script and yeah, punching up his dialogue, giving that character a bit more depth and just making that character all round more interesting.
Okay. So there were a lot of a lot of hands involved
Yeah.
in this. Oh, I'm going to say the first. Well, no, not even the first. I'm going to say another of many controversial things that I'm going to utter this episode. But I think, you know, the phrase "too many cooks spoil the broth."
Yeah, I'm familiar with it.
It's usually a bad sign to me when there are that many people involved in a script, whether that be rewrites or, as you said, there were script credit disputes and all sorts. And to be honest, kind of to me reflected on the screen.
Okay.
I do not like the script for this movie. I don't think it's particularly good. It has moments, don't get me wrong, but I don't love it.
Okay. Do you want to talk about that then? Should we talk about the dialogue?
We can talk about the dialogue a bit, yeah.
Because it's one of the things, and I would say usually I would agree with you. Usually when you see a bunch of people that were involved in a project, that is often a bad sign.
Mm-hmm.
It means that things have gone wrong at some point. The script wasn't enough developed before it got greenlit. I think this is an exception because I think everything that they brought to it, I think everything that the team brought to it enhanced it and made it your above average action movie. I think that this is a really dumb, smart action movie. I think it's a really smart, dumb action movie. That's what I'm going to say.
Do you?
I do. I think that there's, and as someone that's seen this film 42 times, I know pretty much every beat of this, but it wasn't until watching it for the podcast that I was really trying to figure out why I love it. Part of it is because I saw it when I was 13 and it makes me feel like a kid again. But honestly, like whenever I try to watch films for the podcast, I do try to be a bit more objective. And I saw way more in it this time that I thought was really strong. And I think that a lot of the dialogue and a lot of the characters are really strong for an action movie.
I think you should stipulate male characters.
Well, yeah, they're all male characters. We'll get onto the sausage fest nature of it.
Yes, we will.
But I think, for me, I think this film, and you could argue maybe that it's 10 minutes too long. I would argue.
Could argue it's an hour too long. I'm kidding.
I think from the opening sequence, it is just the first 15 minutes is introducing you to Ed Harris, Nicolas Cage, Sean Connery, and I think it does that masterfully.
I find it interesting that they introduce the villain first.
Yeah.
And I know I say villain, it's not as black and white as that, which is why I've seen this film before, but not for like 20 years. And we got about an hour in, and I think I sort of looked at you and went, who's the baddie? Who's the bad guy? Because I don't hate Ed Harris's motives. And I was genuinely a little bit unsure. Obviously, you know, I've seen a movie before. I know we're supposed to be rooting for Nicolas Cage. But there was some ambiguity over that.
And that's part of what I like about it.
Okay.
I think it's obvious to me that he is the bad guy, but he's doing these things for... he has his reasons that he believes are right.
Sort of noble ends.
Yeah, and I think that's another interesting part of this film. It's not as black and white as your average, I've taken hostages and I'm going to blow their brains out every hour until I get my money.
So you know a lot more about action films than I do. It's funny, I've sort of considered myself to be kind of a fan of action films. What I'm realising, the more that we do this, is that actually I'm not. What I like are martial arts films.
Yeah. Which are action movies.
Which are, yeah, of course. But like for me, when I say I like action movies, it's not. Explosions don't impress me. I don't give a fuck about explosions, which is one reason I don't really get on with Michael Bay, because he sure as shit loves explosions and car chases and low-angled circular dolly shots.
Hero shots.
I fucking hate I hate it. I hate it. It makes me want to slit my own throat. It's so cheesy.
We couldn't disagree more on this.
I know. You knew this was going to happen.
It's interesting though.
So as somebody who is a lot more well-versed with action films, is it unusual to introduce the villain first? Or is that standard?
I think, yeah, it's a little bit unorthodox, but I was thinking about Bad Boys in relation to this movie. As we said, Bad Boys was Michael Bay's first directing credit, and this was his second. That movie opens with the criminals heisting the drugs out of the police station. So it's
Yeah, I
not
guess
completely
so.
dissimilar, but there are differences.
So is it a Bay thing?
It could be a Bay thing. I think it could be a Bruckheimer thing. I think it's a good way to open a film. I think the villain in action movies are not usually. I think the best ones, the villains are probably the most interesting characters.
Unless the protagonist is Nicolas Cage.
Yeah, exactly. But you want to set up their motive and you want to set up the threat. And that's what I love about the start of this movie with the Ed Harris stuff. He's talking at the grave at his dead wife because he's got a dead wife.
There's always a dead wife in these films.
This film is not without tropes and cliches, and I fully accept that. And that is one of them. While the wife is dead, the boys will go out and steal 16 VX boys and rocket cats.
That's the saying, yeah.
Yeah. But you get that slow motion talking to his wife at the grave. Then it cuts to Ed Harris's team trying to steal the rockets from the Navy base.
You've forgotten an entire portion of the intro. Before there's even been a line of dialogue. Like, this is the most macho film I've ever seen. This is the most, this is toxic masculinity distilled into a movie.
Okay.
And not only that, but like that weird sort of US patriotism as well. Because before there's been a line of dialogue, we've seen a dude sucking on a cigar, at least 2 US flags, military uniforms, a fiery title card, a helicopter, and God knows what else that I missed.
All things that 13-year-old me would have Googled in 1997 when I saw this movie.
But do you know what I mean? It's just dialogue aside, like the visuals and that level of, I guess toxic masculinity is the best term for it, just makes it sound like the person who wrote the outline for this movie was a 15-year-old who hadn't slept for a week and was just surviving on those blue Takis and nothing but Monster energy drinks, you know?
Mm. Okay.
It's very America.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a patriotic movie, but I think the difference is that it's not blindly accepting patriotism. It's like the lead character is patriotic and he quotes old people that said things about being a patriot. But then you do have the opposing ideology of that with John Mason and him quoting Oscar Wilde, patriotism is a virtue of the vicious. So I agree with you. On the one hand, it's super basic, but on the other hand, it knows that it's super basic and it is offering alternate opinions, I think. And I do like that. I think for me, this film is kind of having its cake and eating it.
I think maybe that's what gets my back up a little bit.
Okay. You want it to be one thing or the other?
I think when it's this flag waving, it sort of doesn't get to have its cake and eat it. I think it's hypocritical maybe. But then that's just my opinion. And who the fuck wants to listen to the opinion on US patriotism from some pasty Brit who's sat in a spare bedroom? I don't give a shit where I was born. This country's fine, I guess. I'm not the one.
You're right. There's a lot of patriotism, and that's set up in the beginning. I completely forgot that he chucks a stogie in his gob. But of course, we've got to do that. And there's a bunch of men shouting at each other. There is a load of toxic masculinity in this. I think Bay is certainly guilty of fetishizing masculinity, and not so much in this film, but later on in his career, obviously photographing females in a overly sexualized way.
Mm-hmm.
Megan Fox, obviously, is the prime example of that.
Kate Beckinsale as well has got some choice words about him.
Okay. I think this doesn't do that quite as much. It's still about men. It's still about idiots and their stupid ideologies. But I think this is kind of that sweet spot before he went full Bay, before he had all of the money to do whatever he wanted. I think there was probably still people reining him in a bit.
I guess so. But to me, this isn't even guilty of it being like the male gaze, because there are no women in this. There are 2 women.
Yeah, so there are women in it.
Well, 3 if you count Claire Forlani's friend.
Yeah.
Who... That's one of my favourite moments, by the way, when Sean Connery peers around the corner and goes, "Jade?" And her friend goes, "No, I'm whatever, Jade's friend." It's like, well, clearly he's not talking to you then, dipshit.
Yeah. That's
the line of dialogue you wrote for one of the only 3 women in this movie, is it? And I just get the impression that Michael Bay hates women and doesn't see them as people.
Right. What makes you think that? I mean, obviously, we've mentioned the Megan Fox thing already, and I'm not disagreeing with you, but let's talk about it. What makes you think that he hates women? What was the Kate Beckinsale thing you referenced? What's her take on Bay?
So remember when Michael Bay did that really tasteful historical epic, Pearl Harbor, that was received really well critically?
Absolutely the right man for that job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And Tom Sizemore was in that movie.
So, oh God. So he basically said on record that he cast Kate Beckinsale, beautiful, striking Kate Beckinsale, because he didn't want to cast someone too pretty, because that would alienate female viewers. I'm paraphrasing, but he said if you cast a woman that's too attractive, then other women won't find it relatable.
Okay.
Am I some fucking bridge troll if Kate Beckinsale is the wrong side of pretty? What the fuck? What the fuck? And like she came out with this story. I think it was on like Graham Norton or some sort of talk show, saying that she'd just had a kid, and he'd told her to hit the gym and lose some weight and get in shape for the role. And her response was, "I'm playing a 1940s nurse." You think that many of them were hitting the gym?
Yeah.
But he didn't care.
Okay.
Obviously.
So a bit hypocritical there. So he's saying, on the one hand, I've cast Kate Beckinsale because she's disgusting to look at. It's grotesque.
What?
But get in the gym because we've got to look at you.
What sort of opposite madness are we in here? Yeah, he's just a massive misogynist, it seems.
Okay.
And just kind of an all-round piece of shit from what I've read. But like... This is going to sound weird. We're going to have to come up with some sort of sliding scale so we can grade the piece of shitness of these people that we talk about.
Yeah.
He's not like a Francis Ford Coppola piece of shit.
Yeah.
He's more just like, ugh, that guy.
I mean,
like he walks in a room and maybe you cover your drink.
Okay.
Because you just don't trust him.
It seems like he's probably quite authoritarian, barking orders at people.
Right.
And certainly, I don't know much about him, but certainly probably has a certain presence on set, probably has a certain amount of power, and we all know that turns people into arseholes. So I'm not surprised, disappointed to some degree, but...
he doesn't seem widely liked.
No.
Let's just say that.
No. But it doesn't matter because he's made Transformers, which was a masterpiece.
God, you want to talk about misogynistic? Don't even get me started on his Transformers movies. And the fact that when Megan Fox auditioned for the role, she had to go to his house and clean his car while he filmed her. And when he was asked about it in an interview, he said, "Oh yeah, I don't know where that footage ended up." So that's what I mean when I say scumbag.
Yeah.
Just not the nicest dude, you know?
I'm not going to fight you on that. It sounds... Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, I don't know what to say.
No, anybody who sexualizes Megan Fox when she was a minor, I know I'm covering old ground as well because we definitely touched on that in Bad Boys.
I'm sure we did.
But yeah, I just find him a bit gross. Sorry, I'm always such a buzzkill.
No, don't worry.
I love that. No, you're not. Just don't worry.
I'll be honest, right? I'm a little bit. When we were watching the movie the other night, you got to remember, this is one of my favourite movies. I love this. So I'm sharing it with you for the first time. My partner, whom I love and adore. You hated it. So a bit of me is like, oh, I'm not saying that that's correct. I'm just telling you how I feel because I've got so much love for this film. I can acknowledge that it's not perfect. And I can acknowledge that there are cliches and tropes all over this film. But I continue to defend it. Not only because I love it and there's a nostalgic factor, but I do think that it's really good. And I do think that it's peak Bay. I'm trying really hard not to be too defensive, I think is what I'm trying to say.
You can be defensive.
I might start coming across like, oh, well. So I just want to get that disclaimer out of the way to say that if I am defensive, it's just because I love it so much.
Well, now I feel bad.
Why do you feel bad?
Because of the words you just said.
Oh, don't worry. One day we'll talk about Nightbreed.
Well, so that's kind of what was I'm also trying not to get defensive because I've introduced you, my partner, my love of my life or whatever, to so many films I love that you've actively disliked.
Yeah.
In fact, I would say the vast majority of them.
We do have quite different tastes.
Yes. No shit.
Yeah.
So maybe we just need to accept that and watch more films alone. I don't know.
We said at the top that this is going to be more of a counselling session and it was going to go one of two ways.
Yeah, you were right. You were right. I still think this thing's worth fighting for. But yeah, like the other night when we watched it and you said to me, this to you is peak cinema. And I was like, my jaw dropped. Because to me, like, peak cinema is Past Lives, which is a film that you hated. I want films about the human experience that also look phenomenal, you know? So yeah, we do have wildly differing tastes. I like trash as well. And for what it's worth, I do think this is Michael Bay's best movie. For what it's worth.
And you still hate it?
I don't hate it, no. I wouldn't choose to watch it.
You think this is objectively better than Bad Boys?
I think it's a better film. I enjoy it less. I would rather watch Bad Boys.
I think this is objectively way better than Bad Boys. I don't know, they're sort of on a par for me, just because they came out at a very informative time and I enjoy them both so much. But I think
for me, I think when I watch an action film, what I'm looking for the most is just fun. And I know I'm kind of retconning some of what I said in Bad Boys. But if you've signed up to our Patreon and you listened to our review of Bad Boys 4, you'll know that I've since sort of come around to the franchise a little bit. And I find those movies way more fun. I don't find this one to be that fun.
What is it about those ones that you find more appealing than this?
I mean, the comedy's way more overt for a start.
Yeah.
This is more sort of like quirky asides, whereas Bad Boys is out and out buddy comedy jokes, you know?
Yeah, you're right. That franchise, they're all action comedies. This one is an action movie with some quips.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. I think that first Bad Boys movie, I think, is way more misogynistic than this.
Oh, yeah. No doubt.
It has its issues, which again, you'll go back and listen to our Bad Boys episode. Actually,
if you want to hear me rant again.
Don't go back and listen to that, because that's before we used the better mics and the sound quality wasn't great. So just don't listen to anything in season 1, but take our word for it. We discussed it in great detail and it's the best podcast that's ever been released. So just give us 5 stars on that basis.
Yeah.
I have trouble reconciling which one I like more, whether it's Bad Boys or The Rock, because I love them both dearly.
Well, for the purposes of this season, you have to say The Rock because Nick Cage is in it and he's not in Bad Boys.
But I think objectively, I think this is way better than Bad Boys. And also, I agree this is his best film. And I don't think it's
by far.
It's not close. I think it's this, Bad Boys, and then everything else is just in the bin.
And then what's the word? Languishing.
Langoliering.
Languishing down at the bottom there is Ambulance, in your opinion, I'm guessing.
No, it's probably a Transformers movie, but I didn't like Ambulance.
No.
But
do you think how different do you think The Rock would have been if Michael Bay had access to a drone?
Yeah, it would have been way different. There would have been too many drone shots for sure. Something that I was kind of touching on earlier is that this being his second film, Bad Boys was very successful.
I think ultimately that's why he continues to get work, though, because he does put bums in seats. He does pretty well at getting the numbers at the box office, I think.
Yeah, well, certainly. That's why he's been working all of these years. But I think this one ended up being his peak because my theory is that just after this one made a bunch of money, and then after this, it's like Armageddon. I think that was even bigger than The Rock. And then it's Pearl Harbor, which...
Yeah. Armageddon was massive.
It was enormous, yeah. I went to see Armageddon 4 times in the cinema.
That's so wild to me.
and then the Armageddon also part of the Criterion collection.
Yeah.
Along with The Rock. 2 Michael Bay movies in a Criterion collection. That's wild.
It was early days for them. But I think they were less picky back then, I heard.
I think Yeah, so you got The Rock, you got Armageddon, all made loads of money. Pearl Harbor, I'm not sure how that did financially, but certainly is a terrible movie. And
Oh, it was panned
yeah,
critically. I know that much. I don't know how it did at the box office, but I mean, it was made fun of on such a massive scale, to the point where even like most people, when you say Pearl Harbor, they'll think of the song from Team America before they think about the movie.
I think I've only seen Team America once, but for me, I just remember the Matt Damon thing.
Oh, it's way better than Pearl Harbor.
Right. But I think after this, after Armageddon, you know, you can see it a little bit in Armageddon when maybe the shackles are being loosened a little bit and he's starting to go more bay. And then it's by Transformers, it's just full bay. And I don't hate that first Transformers movie. I don't think it's great, but like in a Armageddon sort of way, I kind of have fun with it. Now, granted, I haven't seen it in 15 years, so it might not hold up. And I'm never going back to watch it again.
I wouldn't.
No, I'm not going to. But I enjoyed that first one when it came out and then hated each one after that. And I don't think I've even seen the last one. But I think this is the point where he's got good ideas. Visually, he's an interesting director. But then he's got people going, we don't need that many cuts, do we, Bay? Let's dial it back a little bit. Let's have one less explosion. Bay's like, can we have 12 helicopter shots? And they're like, no, we can only afford 2. But later on, they're like, you want 12 helicopter shots? Have 20. So I think that's the difference, and that's why his movies perhaps are not as good now. I think this is a really good example, The Rock, of everyone, and I know your opinion is different to mine, but I think everyone that came on board, it just sort of became this really special lightning in a bottle thing where everything just worked out really nicely. Where Cage came on board, that got Sean Connery on board.
Well, now he's known as Connery.
Yeah. Connery was on board. He brought his writers on. They brought more writers on, and then it changed, and they got the location, and Ed Harris and all of that stuff kind of came together. And Hans Zimmer, not to mention Hans Zimmer as well, was first.
All I could hear was Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah, you're right. And I think this would have been the first Hans Zimmer score I ever
paid attention to.
Yeah. I must have seen Rain Man before this movie, but I couldn't have told you that was a Hans Zimmer score. But this was the first time I heard one, and I loved it. Like, I adore this. This might be my favourite Hans Zimmer score.
Wow.
And that is saying something. I mean, I'm putting this above The Dark Knight, you know. And Dark Knight Rises, which is a fantastic score. Maybe better than Dark Knight, but anyway.
I can see you doing the mental gymnastics, trying to tally them all.
But for me, I saw this, The Rock, and was like, wow. And my favourite scene in this, which is the car chase scene.
Of course it is. I could have predicted that.
Because of course it is. But this was the first Hans Zimmer score I paid attention to, 1996. I saw this, was like, wow, who's this guy? I need to see more of his stuff. Crimson Tide is another Hans Zimmer score. Sounds exactly the same as this. But also you go back to like Speed, which was a Jan de Bont movie. Jan de Bont?
I say Jan, but I don't know if that's correct. Maybe it's Hun.
It's Hun. So Mr. de Bont, he made Speed, and the person that did that score was Mark Mancina, who later came on to Bad Boys.
Right, yeah.
So you've got the connector Jerry Bruckheimer thing there. Mm-hmm. And I feel like he kind of started this action sound, this action score. I want to say, like, in the 80s, maybe Silvestri's pioneering the way, sort of paving the way for that. Hans Zimmer is obviously about, but then you get Mark Mancina on Bad Boys, and then the score for this sounds a lot like Bad Boys. Mm-hmm. When you said that to me about The Rock reminding you of the score for Pirates of the Caribbean, I was thinking, oh yeah, and
Bad Boys, yeah.
And my brain was going, but Bad Boys is
and I was like, yeah, that's exactly what I just heard.
Yeah. But it's also the same as, it's a variation of the score for Speed. It's very similar to Pirates of the Caribbean. The Peacemaker is another one, that is a great score as well, and I love that movie. It doesn't get talked about nearly enough, I don't think. So I think this was when I first noticed Zimmer, and it was proper like, what is this? Wow. And I would listen to this just on its own. I think it was when I discovered that I actually really like composers' music.
Right.
And when you're a kid, you listen to classical music, you old fart. But I would willingly sort of put this on. My mates would be like, why are you listening to classical music? I'm like, no, it's Hans Zimmer. It's from the movie The Rock.
It's funny you say that, because every morning on the car journey to work, my business partner has classical FM on. And we usually play a game of which movie was this in. 50% of the time, the answer is Lord of the Rings.
Right. Okay.
Or Harry Potter.
I couldn't name you a Harry Potter score. I've seen some of those movies, I think. And I've seen some of the Lord of the Rings movies as well.
They're no The Rock, though, are they?
No, they're not. They're no The Rock. But the score's quite good. I don't know if you have any favourite scenes or any scenes that you want to point out that maybe you don't. Maybe you've got like a list of scenes that you hate.
So I don't have favourite scenes. I do have a few I want to talk about, but they mostly involve questions.
All right, give me some questions then, and then we'll get back to my car chase bit.
They're mostly sort of practical questions as well. So the scene where the Navy SEALs turn up, is it the Navy SEALs or the other guys? They're camouflaged. Yeah?
Yep.
They're all walking up and they've painted themselves with camouflage. It's not the Navy SEALs, it's Michael Biehn and his lot.
Yeah, they're the SEALs.
Oh, are they?
Yeah.
Oh, God. I'm so confused.
You got caught up because every time they said SEALs, you were clapping going, oh, when are the SEALs coming?
Yeah.
Like, no,
this movie would have been so much better if there'd been SEALs.
It's not what you think, darling. You're going to be disappointed. Although it is Michael Biehn who does the spinny gun time in Tombstone.
So my question is, what are they camouflaged as?
SEALs.
No, they're not. They wouldn't fool anyone.
What do you mean? They've just got
They've got lines on them.
Yeah.
Well, they camouflaged as great.
I don't know how camouflage works. They're just why does anyone ever do that? Schwarzenegger did it in Commando.
I don't get it. So the scene where
but Nicolas Cage and Sean Connery aren't in camo face.
No, they don't need to be, because that's how we distinguish who the main players are.
I was going to say, do you know why?
It's a very convenient method.
Yeah, because they were number 1 and 2 on the call sheet.
Yeah, exactly.
And Michael Biehn was like, fuck.
God, give me the grease paint. The scene after that, when they're trying to sort of infiltrate Alcatraz, the prison, is there a mine under Alcatraz?
Oh, okay. So you're going ahead to after the morgue scene. They've done the SEAL incursion.
Yeah.
And then you've got the action part where they've removed the guidance chip from a rocket, and then they jump into the shaft, into some mines, and then there's gunfight.
So yeah, some stuff happens.
Yeah. Are there mines under Alcatraz? I've got no idea.
Oh,
probably not.
My next question would have been, why are there mines under Alcatraz?
Well, there's a throwaway line in the movie where Connery says, "That's the subway." So I think that's explained perfectly. And
right.
Your question is,
I just wasn't paying close enough attention.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That's that answered. There's the part where Sean Connery, John Patrick Mason.
Definitely not James Bond. By the way.
Uh-huh. Yeah. And he sort of volunteers himself to go through this flaming thing.
All the maps are in my head.
Why is it on fire? What is this contraption doing? What is its purpose? To quote to quote How Did This Get Made? What's its mission?
The mission is Michael Bay. That's what it is. Like I said, this is not a perfect movie, and if you're looking for realism, look somewhere else. Yes, why is there a hole in the bottom of the wall which has got flamethrowers throwing fire out with some spinny cogs?
Yeah, it's really video gamey.
Yeah, it's really video gamey. Why does that exist?
Yeah, no, I'm asking you that.
I don't know, because it looks cool. And it's convenient that John Mason, he puts his balaclava down. So it's definitely Sean Connery that's rolling through that fire. Have a nice day. And then he rolls through it. I want to mention something that another podcast brought up, actually.
Okay.
The Confused Breakfast. They did an episode on this movie, The Rock. And they pointed out that, okay, so they're breaking into Alcatraz, right?
Yeah.
And John Mason is remembering the route that he took. So he's tracing his steps backwards.
Yeah.
He goes through the fire thing, whatever it is,
Yep.
and then opens the door. So when he was on his way out, why didn't he just walk through the door when he escaped Alcatraz in 63?
Oh, yeah.
And I never thought of that before. It's a fucking good point, though.
Oh, man.
I was underground for 3 days, just waiting for the tides to be right.
So my final question to you then
Right, okay.
is, why do you think this is smart?
I have a myriad of reasons.
But so this is a genuine question. Like, explain to me. I know I've been taking the piss, and I know I don't really enjoy this film very much. But taking the pish. But I do genuinely really want to hear your reasoning for why you enjoy it so much and why you think it's a smart, dumb movie. Well,
that's it. That's my caveat. Is that this movie is dumb as shit, but it's done really smartly, I think.
But what are the smart parts?
So I think a lot of the reason that this movie works for me and it holds up to rewatch is that the first 15 minutes is introducing you to all these characters. We've already spoken about Hummel and his team. Sorry, Brigadier General Francis X. Hummel of the United States Marine Corps.
God.
They try to steal 16 VX poison rockets, but they only get 15 because they drop one in the first scene. That first scene is introducing you to Hummel. He's reluctantly doing this. He's not using lethal force. He's using rubber bullets and poison darts.
Rubber bullets, but one of them does presumably kill a man.
He falls out of the watchtower.
Yeah, he's dead. That guy's dead.
He's dead.
At best, paralysed.
Casualties of war. They're a sacrifice. That's what patriots do. But you get that. Like, a lesser film is not really going to do that sort of thing. You get introduced to the rockets. They're in a secure facility that's cool. There's ice on the ceiling. Details that you don't get in other films. And these are only things that you really pick up on when you've seen it 42 times. But then they drop a rocket and you see the globe of poison gas drops on the floor. Someone's skin starts boiling.
My favourite part, by the way.
What, the first part? All right.
The body horror.
Yeah. The effects are really good and it sets up that threat nicely. Oh, wow, this stuff is really powerful. I hope no one tries to steal it and points it at San Francisco.
I was hoping for more of that.
Well, yeah, that's fair. That would have been nice to see a bit more of it. You do get a bit more at the end, where Captain Fry gets it in the mouth.
No, yeah, just leave it there.
But
gets the anal bead in the mouth.
It's a very elegant string of pearls configuration. So and then after that scene when he's taking the rockets, you then get introduced to Stanley Goodspeed. He's at his desk and he's firing a toy gun at a toy target. So, like, I think that's a very smart what's the word? The opposite of the original scene, but
like a dichotomy.
Yeah, I trust. I don't know what it means. Yeah, sure, that. It's like he's an FBI agent, but he's kind of playing like he's not really.
Well, he hasn't seen much action, has he?
Hasn't seen much action. He's at his desk. He's a desk guy, but he's a good shot though. So you get that, and then you get his introduction with the bomb. Hello, Stanley, and then you get all of the Mason stuff. So and I really like how that's all set up. And I think that pays dividends later. So I think that they spent a lot of time setting this up, and I'm enjoying the characters and their interactions because of that. I think you get a lot of Ed Harris kind of reluctantly doing what he's doing. There's a bit at the end when he has a conversation with, as I think we already mentioned this, with Mason about patriotism versus terrorism, and whether you're doing things for the right reasons. So I think that they do a really good job at setting up the characters, and there's also some really cool visuals. I think that some of this film looks really nice, and it's before Bay can't have a frame lasting longer than a second. So you are getting some longer shots. In regular cinema terms, it's still quite fast cuts, but you do get some longer ones where the camera starts off in one place, pans somewhere else, and someone's coming down the stairs. Bay does not do that now.
Actually, on that topic, one of the visuals that I did particularly like, which is going to sound odd given how much I downplayed explosions earlier, they're running through some tunnels. When I say they, I mean Goodspeed and Mason. There's an explosion that they're running away from, and there's sort of ankle or like knee height water that they're running through. And there's the moment where they sort of duck down into the water and the camera is below them in the water and you see the flames above them. That was a pretty cool shot. And it's almost painful for me to say that. But that I did know at the time looked pretty darn cool.
There's a few water tank shots I think look really cool. That looks good because you see their faces and they're clearly in some water there. They're obviously in a tank. I think actually some of the crew got sick because of it, if I remember rightly. I think Connery kind of asked that the water be warm, but that breeds
bacteria
in the water. So I think the crew got a bit sick.
Oh no.
But I think a bunch of that water stuff looks great. You get the seal incursion. Yeah, not real SEALs.
Yeah, I know.
Army people, super army soldiers. When they get dumped out of the helicopter, good to go. They get dumped in the water, and you see them swimming through the bay area towards Alcatraz, and you get a really cool shot of like the team kind of swimming through in their little kind of one-man subs and stuff. And that was models. They actually built resin models, lightweight models, and they shot dry for wet. So they just had models on string, suspended, and they sort of moved the camera through, and they had these models like moving their feet to replicate the SEALs swimming, army SEAls, not the animal SEAls.
Yes, I know.
And then they just used some grading and a clever use of kind of the light coming through, and they made it look like water. But there was one of those shots that wasn't actually water. As I say, it was dry for wet. I didn't know that till today. But there's loads of stuff like that just, it's really, it was made with kind of a lot of love and care and attention as well. Yeah, I struggle to think, there's a couple of things about this film that I think clearly I would criticise, but there's not much. I think this is as close to a perfect kind of 90s stupid action movie as you can get.
Do you want to know my one biggest, very predictable critique? Just make some of the male characters female. And it doesn't affect it.
Okay.
They don't even have to be getting stuck into the action. There's a bunch of guys just stood around in suits. Why couldn't half of them be women?
No, I agree totally. I think if this was made today, do you think there'd be more female characters in it?
I don't think the type of misogyny that Bay's films were kind of rife with would fly today. So I suspect it would be a more diverse cast. I would hope so.
Would you class this film as misogynistic?
A bit, yeah.
Why?
Well, the women in his films just sort of exist to be either window dressing or to make stupid decisions that put the male protagonists in jeopardy.
But Sarah, Carla wanted a baby and wanted to get married.
And she was Catholic. Those were her defining personality traits.
Who is... Oh, yeah. Claire Forlani, yeah. I was about to say who was the other.
Exactly.
Yeah, they're not. They're underwritten for sure. And I think if this was made today, I think maybe you would get more female characters in there.
I hope so.
It's not hard, really, is it? Because it would be I do love this film. I can look at it and go, it was made in the 90s. There's not many female characters in it. It doesn't affect my enjoyment of the movie too much. But with my critical hat on, yeah, you're absolutely right. There is a couple, and they get sort of sidelined, and they're very basic. They're just there to serve as the motivation for the male characters. So Mason has got a daughter. He doesn't want San Francisco to explode because she's on it. Goodspeeder's got a wife and a kid on the way. He doesn't want San Francisco to explode because
they're
got
on it.
A fiance on it. Yeah, and that's all they are there for. So I think it's important to point that out. It doesn't affect my enjoyment of it massively because I can view it, as a film from back then. But it is interesting to think about. I think if they remade this, it would be quite easy to swap out those characters.
Yeah.
And maybe we should have thought about this, actually. Maybe we should have done a recasting for this one. That would have been interesting.
Maybe.
Too late now, isn't it?
But I think what's frustrating to me is that, I don't know, personally speaking, obviously I have a lot of beef with this type of film for various reasons. And if I'm being perfectly honest, I think one of them is because a lot of the sort of people, I'm going to generalize horribly here, so feel free to at me on Instagram and give me shit about it. But I feel like a lot of the sort of people who really enjoy these kind of movies shit on what they term chick flicks or rom-coms. But they're the same. You're going to tell me that the guy trying to defuse a bomb before the countdown runs out isn't the same as the guy running through the airport to declare his undying love. They all hit the same beats. They're all exactly as predictable. They're just consumed by different people, but one is not better than the other. And I feel like a lot of people who like action films and films like this are quite derisive about stuff like that.
Yeah, you could be talking about me. I obviously love this sort of movie, and I agree it is predictable and somewhat formulaic. The devil is in the detail. I think that I do shit on quite a lot of romantic comedies. The most recent one we watched was Anyone But You.
Oh, that was dreadful though.
God awful. But for me, the problem is that romantic comedies have to be funny, you know, and for me most of them aren't funny. You do get outliers. There are some that I enjoy, but just for the most part, unfortunately, most of the ones that I've seen have been really not funny.
But I'm not for a second saying that you have to enjoy them. Just don't maybe consider them a lesser art form.
I do consider them a lesser art form.
But that's what I'm saying. How can you?
Because I enjoy action more. But
that doesn't make it either one less or more valid.
No, I'm joking.
Look, you're just a different audience.
I genuinely don't see any type of movie as a lower form of art or whatever. Like, what you like is what you like. How you interpret something is completely subjective, and it's up to you. I happen to like action movies way more, and I think for action movies to be good, they've got to be entertaining. They've got to be funny, fun, tense in places. But most of all, it's about the visual. It's about what you're seeing and how you're connecting the dots and things. A romantic comedy just needs to be funny. And I'm not saying that's easy.
Disagree.
It's very difficult to make a funny movie.
It's a balancing act.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm absolutely playing devil's advocate here because I don't like most rom-coms. I have a lot more time for some female-leaning films than you do, but I wouldn't say I like them any more than you generally. So I don't know why I'm going to bat for them so hard, but I just think it's important to kind of think that everything has its place and you shouldn't shit on a genre just because you enjoy it less. Anyway, I'm getting a bit distracted from my point here.
I think as well, action movies, comedy's really difficult to write, really difficult to perform, get the timing right, get the editing right, difficult. Action movies, it's difficult for other reasons. It's logistically difficult. You've got these huge set pieces you've got to deliver on. It's got to be paced well. It's got to be funny, and it's got to really drive forward. And I think I enjoy them more. So when I see them done well, I'm really appreciative of that. And I think this one does do that well. And I think it delivers a dumb movie in a smart way. You can, if you're paying attention, you pick up every detail. You can go, that's interesting. I like that. And that's why I like that thing. And that's why I like this thing. But if you're not, don't worry, because they're going to explain 3 times why you should inject your heart with atropine.
Side note,
yeah.
Either I don't know where my heart is or Nicolas Cage doesn't, because he injected that very low down.
Yeah. It's a problem. I think he injected his pancreas.
Yeah, but it worked, so who cares? But just to go back a little bit, the point I was trying to get at before I got sidelined is that I think possibly for many women, I can't speak for all of us, obviously, but I think for many women, maybe a stumbling block to these types of movies is relatability. I don't want to watch an action film where the 2 female characters have a handful of scenes, like maybe 6 scenes between them, and don't contribute anything. That's boring. I want to see, and it's not like I want to see strong women and like the ass kicking type. Like, I don't give a shit about that. Don't care about that. I just want to see well-written female characters in more prominent roles. I want to see a more diverse cast because it's interesting. So I wonder if that is a bit of a barrier to entry for a lot of women when it comes to this genre. And I know people are going to sort of use box office statistics to disagree with that, and they're going to say, but what about the Marvels, or what about such a thing like Expendables 4 had Megan Fox in it, you know?
Yeah, but they were both terrible.
But they were both not good movies. They're not a good example.
Yeah.
I want
don't-
it to be a good film, but also have female protagonists, you know?
I honestly don't think that female action movies have been given a fair shake.
No.
Like what have you got? You've got Mad Max Fury Road, which is a brilliant female-led action movie, but it was disguised as a male-led action movie.
Yeah.
Like it's a very thing. They use that to its advantage, and it's a masterpiece, and I love it. But a lot
But
of
you
people
could also
were
say Furiosa, they sort of lent into the female-led nature of that, and it didn't do nearly as well.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And you say The Marvels, not a great. I didn't hate it. I don't think it was a terrible movie, as bad as all that, but it wasn't great. And that shot to bed. But it's not because there are women in action movies. I don't think. Anyway, I think it's just because they were badly made, or not entirely brilliantly made. If that's the thing. But and Expendables, Expend 4 Balls. I mean, that wasn't a female-led action movie.
No,
Megan Fox was in it in a cold room.
Yeah, I know. It was just like one of the first things that came to my mind in terms of recent box office.
Charlize Theron is a good example, like Atomic Blonde.
That didn't do well, but that was excellent.
Great movie, yeah.
I love that, but I think some of it boils down to marketing. Find a way to market these to women, and they'll find their audience.
What about a movie that I know that you love, right? The Raid. It's an action movie. Are there any women in it?
No.
So what is it about The Raid that you enjoy so much more than anything else? If we're talking about action movies.
I mean, well, we did a whole show on it. It's perfect. It's perfectly paced. The choreography is excellent. The martial arts are unlike anything I'd seen before. I was breathless for the entire running time. But one of my favorite characters in The Raid 2, Hammer Girl. She was cool as fuck. So I think there's a place for both, but Michael Bay only does one thing.
I'm not disagreeing with you.
And look, as somebody whose favorite movie is The Thing, like maybe I'm not the person to criticize a movie for being a total sausage fest, because that also doesn't contain a single female. I don't know about the sex of the dog. Maybe that was a lady. But specific to Michael Bay, I just feel like I don't know, he doesn't utilize women very well. And when he does it in the wrong ways. Yeah,
look, I'm not going to disagree with you on that. I think it's a perfectly valid point, and it's part of your reason for not loving this movie. I just guess I have to accept that about you.
Do you still love me?
Yeah.
Oh, you hesitated.
Of course. It's The Rock.
I don't hate this movie. You said I hated it. I don't hate this movie.
You could have fooled me the other night.
But it's not for me, generally speaking.
Yeah.
I think maybe I was more critical than I would have been on a more casual viewing. Like if you'd chosen this for a movie night, I don't know, maybe I wouldn't have been quite so cutthroat, quite so venomous.
Do you think you would have paid less attention to it if we were watching it?
Yeah.
It's funny, isn't it? Because you were talking at me for half of this movie.
I have seen it before, though.
Yeah. 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
I just feel like, I don't know, when you watch something with such a critical eye with the intent of talking about it for an hour, I don't know, maybe I wouldn't have been so hard on it.
What about do you think that the cast is good in this? Do you enjoy the cast?
I do, yeah. Ed Harris, what was the last thing Ed Harris was in? The
Abyss was the last movie he was in.
The Abyss. But he was in shitloads of stuff, wasn't he, back in the day?
Truman Show.
Was he in History of Violence?
I don't know.
Or am I...
It was definitely Viggo Mortensen,
yeah, he was like the main guy.
I can't remember if Ed Harris was in that or not.
But he's great.
Yeah.
Sean Connery's fun.
Sean Connery, yeah, obviously you've got this, and he was in that League of Extraordinary Gentlemen movie. John Spencer. What?
The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. Yeah. That's what you're going with, is it?
I think John Spencer, who plays Womack. Why am I not surprised?
Right.
Piece of shit. He plays Womack, and he's in The Negotiator and West Wing.
Oh,
He was also David Morse is in it. He's one of those guys that we talk about.
So many actors in this are like those guys.
Yeah, and that's another thing that I like about it. There's a lot of really good character actors in this. David Morse.
Not enough Tony Todd, if you ask me.
Not enough Tony Todd, who plays Captain Darrow. William Forsythe as Paxton. Michael Biehn, Commander Anderson. Oh, sorry, Kyle Reese. Gregory Sporleder as Captain Fry, and he was in other things. Bokeem Woodbine, John C. McGinley.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Jim Caviezel.
Jim Caviezel. Blink and you'll miss it. James Caviezel.
Trying to blow up Nicolas Cage's head with an F-18 rocket. Yeah.
This is what sent him mad. This is what sent him to QAnon.
It's another reason why I'm just like, oh, it's that person. Oh, it's that person. Oh, it's that person.
Yeah,
and maybe
I
a
guess
lot of that was before that, John C. McGinley, it's before Scrubs. David Morse is probably the first time I ever noticed David Morse in anything. William Forsythe, probably the same thing, but obviously went on later to work on... when we were watching it, you went, I know that guy. I've seen him in something wearing a cowboy hat.
I could just picture him as some sort of gunslinger.
Was it The Devil's Rejects?
Maybe.
Because he was in that. I think I said to you, I think he was in a Texas Chainsaw movie, but then I looked up his credits.
So you meant, right.
And then I was right because he was in Devil's Rejects.
No, I don't think it's that.
All right.
I can picture him in that as well now.
Yeah. Maybe he was in a Chainsaw movie. I mean, obviously, Michael Bay, the connection there, Platinum Dunes, who did the remakes of all of those horror movies. So maybe he was in one of those.
I quite like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake.
Yeah.
Don't tell anyone.
That's your favourite Michael Bay movie then?
Oh, yeah. I guess it is.
Like, he didn't direct it, but produced.
Right? His name is on it somewhere.
His name is on it somewhere, yeah. So I think the cast is actually really strong in this. I know there's not enough women in it, as we've discussed already. But there's a lot of character actors in there and people you remember. Even for me, like it's really difficult because I've seen this so many times. It's so ingrained in me that I'm like, yeah, that's Gunnery Sergeant Crisp played by Bokeem Woodbine. But like maybe other people won't necessarily remember it. But I think that they're all pretty memorable and they all do something interesting. Tony Todd has his Rocket Man death where Nicolas Cage, and that's something that Cage brought to the role, is I want him to be obsessed with music, and that line in there obviously got rewritten to fit that character. Have you ever heard of the Elton John song Rocket Man? Mm-hmm. And you said, oh, he's standing in front of a rocket. I wonder what's going to happen. It's like, yeah, we know what's going to happen, but listen to the dialogue. It's fun. And then we're going to see him actually get attached to the rocket and get chucked out the window. Not
the first time that Tony Todd has exited a window backwards, weirdly.
Okay. What else?
If I had a $5 for every time I'd seen that happen to him in a movie, I'd have 10 quid, which isn't a lot. But it's weird that it's happened twice.
I can only think of 2 other Tony Todd movies off the top of my head.
Well, then
one
you know it.
Being Candyman.
Yeah.
The other one was Wishmaster.
Candyman.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. There's the bit where Todd Louiso pretends that the doll's talking. So yeah.
Okay. I don't think this is perfect. There's things that we've spoken about that aren't great. I think the pacing is mostly spot on, but there are some parts in it, I think, specifically where FBI director Womack, why am I not surprised, you piece of shit? He's talking to his FBI guy about getting John Mason out of prison. And it's completely unnecessary dialogue because later on, everything is explained anyway through either action, which is one of the things that I really like about it as well. But I just remember thinking when I was a kid watching it, it slows up the movie so much and it's just not necessary. Whip it out, it's fine. And it's probably one of the first times I've ever noticed anything like that when I was watching it as a teenager, thinking, why is he explaining all of this to me? We know that this is... we're going to see all of this stuff that he's explaining later on in the movie. I thought some of the pacing could have been tidied up a little bit. And there's a bunch of tropes and cliches in this. I mean, there's the car chase, which I love. And it's one of my favourite car chases of all time. I love it so much, in fact, that when I was a kid, and I think I've told you this before, but we used to watch movies through our surround sound, which was connected to our stereo. So I was able to record on cassette scenes from movies and songs from the end credits of movies. And one of the things that I did was record the scene of the car chase onto a cassette so I could listen to it on my Walkman when I was on my very merry way walking to school and doing whatever I was doing. So not only have I probably seen that scene 100 times, I've probably listened to it 200 times.
And imagined it in your head.
Yeah. And genuinely as well, like this movie is, I explained already, I'd wake up in the morning, I'd put it on before I go to school because I couldn't sleep. If I had trouble sleeping at night, I would run through this entire movie in my head, word for word, beat for beat. It's really ingrained in there. But yeah, that car chase scene for me is my favourite part of this. I think it's really well done. The thing with this movie for me is it ticks a lot of boxes. I immediately would have gone out and Googled yellow Ferrari F355 Spider. That was the only... before that, it was the Ferrari F40, and then it was the 355 Spider in yellow. And
nod and smile.
I was just obsessed with that car, and I continue to be obsessed with it now, and I love it. And the sound and the chase part of it, and you sort of get more character development in that scene as well. Like with Mason, he's crashing into things and he's trying to get somewhere. We find out it's his daughter. Good Speed is playing it a bit more smart. Yeah, he's going through around the cars and he's going through windows. So there is stuff there. Like, it is not just action for action's sake. It's action because it's fun, but there are parts in it that, for me, make it a cut above your average action movie.
Okay. And that's valid.
Oh, thanks.
I don't really have an awful lot to add at this point, I'll be honest. But I would like to leave you with my final note that I made while watching this, and that's that I think Mason would have smashed the shit out of Crystal Maze.
Oh, yeah.
I think Mason would have been excellent at the Crystal Maze.
Yeah.
But yeah, ultimately, I don't know. Like I said, I don't hate this movie, but it's never, ever going to be my first choice or second choice or even third.
No, that's fair.
But I think it was nice to hear you be enthusiastic about it.
I love it. I think it's the best possible version of a dumb action movie for me. I think it's a certain era of 90s movies. You've got Sean Connery. I'm not a huge fan of Bond, but he's coming back as James Bond. You get a kind of a unconventional hero with Nicolas Cage. We could talk about the evolution of an action star, but let's not. I thought that was interesting. So you've got the kind of the old guard meets the new guard situation. You got Hans Zimmer in there, Michael Bay at his best, I think.
I also think.
Yeah. So we agree on that then. If I had a list of, right, Dan, sit down, write down 10 movies that you think are most responsible for your love of films, this is on that list. Well, that's great then. Yeah. I love it so much, and I don't really know what else to say. I think it's great. I think it's a ridiculous masterpiece of an action movie. I also think it is a film that you've seen. Do you know what this movie's biggest problem is, Dan? It's not Vampire's Kiss. Yes, but there is a connection between the two. Which is? Nicolas Cage. Oh, I see the through line now. It's kind of what this season is all about. It is. In many ways. Does it have any connection with what we're doing next week, maybe? Yeah. Yeah, it does actually. Oh. Because in the next episode, we're doing another Nicolas Cage movie. Oh my God. But what are the chances? You'll be relieved. You won't, because it's another action movie. But it'll be our second John Woo action movie. Oh, I know what it is. I want to take his face off. I'm actually excited about that one. Yeah, good.